In 1791, in order to raise money to pay for a painted glass window, the trustees of St Paul's Chapel, Birmingham in England, organised a gala concert and La Signora Storris was engaged to perform. Nancy Storris was a European singing sensation, having a few years earlier sang Susanna at the first night of the marriage of Figaro in Vienna, a role that Mozart had specially created for her. Given that the window was made by the celebrity glass painter Francis Edgington and was based on the conversion of St. Paul by his friend, the American-born Benjamin West, Royal Academician and history painter to King George III, it's not surprising that a soprano with Storris's star power would be willing to take part in a fundraiser for what was then a small church in a provincial, albeit growing, town. Francis Edgington, born in 1737, had already gained a reputation as an ingenious creator of a process for producing mechanical paintings, and he was an entrepreneur before he came to glass painting relatively late in life. He was an employee and sometime business partner of the industrialist Matthew Boulton, born in 1728, who was one of the pioneers of the English Industrial Revolution and innovator in steam-powered machinery. Edgington's glass paintings, together with those of his son, William Raphael, who was born in 1779, spanned an evolution in style in architectural glass art, from the neoclassical glass painting pictorial style to medieval or Gothic revival mosaic leaded stained glass. And although he never exhibited in London, Edgington's glass painting success and celebrity was underpinned by his ability to capitalize on the connections forged as a result of his relationship with Boulton. This included members of the informal Birmingham philosophical group, known as the Lunar Circle, or Lunatics, as well as Benjamin West and the noted English architect James Wyatt, who was born in 1746. Two of Edgington's larger and rare early painted windows for churches, one in Birmingham and the other in Shrewsbury, remain in situ, and these provide insights into his innovative glass painting methods and choices of subject matter. So back to the conversion of St. Paul, which is one of them, and you can see it on the screen. The Venetian style window is still in the church, and to give some idea of scale, the whole glass painting scheme is 5.5 meters high by almost 5 meters wide. Edgington was originally commissioned to make the window in 1785, but it wasn't installed until 1791. The most likely reason for this delay was that the church needed to raise funds to pay for it, hence the concert with Nancy Storris. Edgington's fee for the window was 400 guineas, which he thought was by no means adequate to its value. The painting that it's based on is presently at the Dallas Museum of Art. Edgington imprinted his name and that of Benjamin West on the painting twice. It's enamelled in brown in his own handwriting on the left. I'm sorry it's faint, but it reads designed by B. West Esquire and executed by F. Edgington, 1791. And it's given in Roman numerals also. The second version is scratched into the enamel of the window, leaving the diffusing wash exposed so that the lettering is highlighted. Well, copies of oil paintings were to the Georgians a vital method of disseminating good taste, culture, and style. If the paintings were reproduced in new ways or onto new media using apparently innovative techniques and processes, like glass painting or mechanical painting, then so much the better. Edgington had earlier copied some of West's work as an engraver and then using the mechanical painting process. On the 8th of December 1789, West wrote to Edgington, "I must now thank you for the experiments you have favoured me with in printing, and from the specimen that you have favoured me with, I flatter myself great things may be done in imitation of drawings." So, glass painting provided another fascinating and novel method of reproducing copies of images, with the added visual spectacle of light being transmitted through the painted glass so that it became, in effect, a luminous canvas. I thought you'd like to see what Edgington looked like, and here he is in this painting by James Miller in 1796. Little is known about Edgington's early life. He and his brother both came to work for Matthew Boulton when Boulton was expanding his late father's buckle-making business in Birmingham, and Boulton was diversifying into the creation of prestige objets d'art and architectural ornaments for elite patrons. By 1762, Boulton had opened his principal manufactory in Soho, engaging the services of members of the Wyatt family to construct the manufactory. There, Boulton sought to distinguish himself from other manufacturers in the area by producing an expanded range of luxury pieces that would appeal to elites and to people of taste around the country and beyond. Edgington learned on the job from those already in Boulton's employ, and then as he gained experience, simply innovated new technologies, techniques, and skills as required to produce Boulton's new goods. At the same time, his creative and artistic abilities were being recognised. Edgington drew a picture of Soho manufactory that Boulton quickly reproduced widely and used in what could be described as early branding or marketing exercises while pursuing markets in Europe and in Russia. And Edgington got to be known by name to Boulton's powerful clients and friends, not least those in the Lunar Circle. This informal group met for dinner at each other's homes on the Monday closest to the full moon to aid travel at night, hence the name. They were an intellectually curious group, keen on science, the arts, philosophy, and politics. Although Edgington never attended one of those dinners, members of the Lunar Circle appreciated his talents and knew that Boulton thought highly of him. As far as particular connections with the Lunar Circle go, Edgington is listed as a pre-publication subscriber to geologist John Whitehurst's groundbreaking book, An Inquiry into the Original State and Formation of the Earth. James Watt, born in 1736, aside from steam engines, found time to invent a letter copying machine and corresponded with Edgington about inks, which Edgington then used in turn to experiment with glass painting. Josiah Wedgwood owned a mechanical painting, and his early biographers suggest that Edgington helped Wedgwood to develop black basalt ware. According to them, Edgington was apparently at one point personally offered a pension from King George III for an unspecified service, although Boulton turned that pension down on Edgington's behalf. Another member of the Lunatics, Erasmus Darwin, grandfather to Charles, openly praised Edgington's engraving skills and artistry in a plan for the conduct of female education in boarding schools. And Benjamin Franklin, when he was in England, also attended some of the Lunar Circle dinners. Members of the Lunar Circle advocated American independence and supported republicanism. All supported the abolition of slavery in England. Franklin, however, did not think that mechanical paintings would catch on in America. Edgington proved such a useful employee that when a local rival businessman, the Japanner Henry Clay, tried to persuade Edgington to leave Soho, and indignant Bolton responded with an offer to Edgington to enter into a partnership to produce the mechanical paintings in 1778, using the production methods that Edgington had perfected. These paintings were said to be a marvel, reproducing not only the image, but the colours, look and texture of oil on canvas. Hardly any have been identified today, although a pre-war edition of Country Life magazine shows a black and white photograph of the London drawing room of Georgian bluestocking Mrs. Montague. The drawing room, covered in mechanical paintings, sadly did not survive the bombing raids of World War II in London. Sadly, the complex and time-consuming secret processes apparently involved in producing mechanical paintings meant that the business was simply not profitable. Bolton dissolved the partnership in 1780. Edgington was distraught about this for a while, then decided to set up on his own account at Prospect Hill, having bought the mechanical paintings rolling press from Matthew Bolton for 8 guineas. Now, it's also highly likely that around this time, Edgington was persuaded to take up glass painting by the Wyatts, who could offer his services to their clients. And Edgington was now related to the Wyatts, having married Maria, cousin of James and sister to Samuel, in 1776. And this is Prospect Hill. It was a pleasant, substantial 2-storey white stuccoed villa, probably built by a Wyatt. It's quite plain, but has fairly rational proportions, and you can see neoclassical columns flanking the front door. The longer ground floor wing on the left included an exhibition space to welcome wealthy clients. On the right, and partially obscured by some trees, I hope you can just see it, is a 2-storey red brick manufactory and at least one bottle kiln. The house and manufactory was demolished in 1871, long after the Edgington family had ceased to live there. Here is another window still in situ, and this is in St Alkmund's Church in Shrewsbury. The works of Guido Reni of Bologna, born in 1575, provided inspiration for glass painters, including Edgington. This is one of Edgington's early architectural glass paintings, completed in 1785, and it was based on a Reni, but the chosen picture, the Assumption of the Virgin, had to be translated into something more palatable for worshippers in St Alkmund's Church. The Protestant sensibilities of the monarch and government and fear of popish plots at the time may have resulted in an understandable desire to avoid accusations of Marian idolatry. The Jacobite uprising, effectively quashed at the Battle of Culloden in 1746, was still very fresh in the memory. Edgington's solution was to repurpose the Virgin as faith, one of the virtues. Edgington maintained the pose and facial expression of the central figure, but incorporated a landscape and introduced new iconography. He reduced the amount of Marian blue in the clothing, although there's a nod to it in the sash. Edgington's faith was also probably a nod to the famous collaboration between Sir Joshua Reynolds and glass painter Thomas Gervase for the windows at New College Chapel in Oxford, installed in 1782. Reynolds had designed 7 allegorical female figures depicting the 7 cardinal virtues, including a representation of faith. The Reynolds designs were much copied, although the glassmaking themselves had a contemporary mixed reception. Horace Walpole dismissed them as the washy virtues, and I will briefly return to the virtues later. The St. Alkmund's window underwent extensive conservation in 2009 by the Holywell Glass Studio in England. The conservators confirmed a number of Edgington's working methods, and perhaps the most remarkable of these was verification that Edgington used 2 layers of very thin glass, about 1.5 or 2 millimeters thick, laminated together. This method was employed especially for the figure and for the landscape detail, adding pictorial depth. In certain areas, multiple panes were simply pressed into soft linseed oil putty, one against the other, finished with a neat putty filler on the exterior. Edgington enamelled both faces of each of the laminated panes of glass to add depth and richness to the painting. It would also reduce the number of firings to which each pane of glass would be subject, as Edgington could put colours across up to 4 faces and not 2. This technique of layering panes of glass is found elsewhere in Edgington's work, for example, in his creation of the Last Judgment for the chapel at Magdalen College in Oxford. Holywell Glass also found evidence that parts of the original cast iron frame were gilded. They ascertained that gilding remained on the internal face of the frame in many areas, but had been covered over with at least 3 layers of dark oil-based paint. This was removed and the gilding was reinstated to the conserved frame. This is the face of Edgington's faith, and the glass painting, despite its inventive and successful transformation of Catholic subject matter, was damned with faint praise by subsequent generations, who championed medieval glass and 2 of its most essential features, which were the translucency of its brilliantly coloured glass and the shaping role of the lead lines. Nonetheless, I do think this image shows Edgington's mastery of the stippling technique in enamels on glass to achieve the desired facial expression, which is based very closely on Rainey's painting. I mentioned that Guido Reni was a popular choice for glass painters, and I'd like to show you this panel, which is in the Corning Museum's collection. Another acclaimed contemporary glass painter, the talented and aristocratically connected Eglinton Margaret Pearson, created this aurora using enamels and stain on glass. It was painted in 1793, and the panel, measuring just 45 centimetres by 80 centimetres, is based on Rainey's fresco of L'Aurora, completed in 1614. And it was acquired by the Corning Museum of Glass in 2016 and is featured in its exhibition in Sparkling Company. Pearson and her husband also painted on a much larger scale. They competed with Edgington to gain the main commission from William Beckford for the extensive glazing scheme at the fantastic Fonthill, which comprised pictorial, heraldic, and decorative glass. Both of the rivals could offer the best quality enamel painting of the day, but Edgington got the commission in the end. He offered lower prices than the Pearsons, and I think the fact that James Wyatt had designed Fonthill may also have had a lot to do with it. Other notable glass painting rivals included James Price and William Peckett, who both worked at Strawberry Hill for Horace Walpole, and the aforementioned Irish-born Thomas Gervase. a showman who also employed the use of painted glass to achieve marvellous effects of shipwrecks and thunderstorms with his Ido Fusican entertainment on the Strand in London, entry 1 shilling. Gervais, it seems, appreciated Edgington's use of a scientific method in glass painting, recommending him for an Oxford glass painting commission when he himself was too lacking in the courage and too ill, he said, to undertake the commission himself. When Edgington died in 1805, his son William Raphael continued to paint the Fonthill glass with his brother-in-law, Samuel Lowe. Finally, I said that I would come back to the Virtues. Reynolds' designs for the Virtues remained a popular subject for architectural glass paintings well into the 19th century. And in 1816, William Raphael Edgington painted just 6 of the Virtues for St Margaret's Church, Great Bar in Birmingham. They were commissioned by Baronet Sir Joseph Scott. The 6 windows were removed from the church when it was rebuilt in the more fashionable neo-Gothic style around 1860. They were thought destroyed, but subsequently found in an outbuilding, a malt house at Great Bar Hall, and donated to the Birmingham Museum and Art Gallery. 2 of the Virtues, Charity and Justice, are presently on display at Birmingham Museum, and this is Charity. Faith, fortitude, prudence and patience remain in the Art Gallery's repository and require expensive repair and conservation. Hope, apparently, was destroyed many years ago in a shooting accident. I hope you can see that in this Charity, the use of richly coloured translucent enamelling and glass staining might be considered a riposte to Walpole's washy Virtues. Martin Ellis, former curator at Birmingham Museum, has applauded the survival of Regency pictorial glass, noting that as it was hated by the Gothic revivalists of the later 19th century, and that without the benefit of any antiquity to recommend them, most Georgian painted glass was tragically ripped out and destroyed. I think it seems right then that we should treasure what remains. Thank you.